Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacalyn KERBECK. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio. Your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, where we proudly provide world-class education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. I'm Dr. Jacalyn KERBECK, and our show today is What You Were Never Taught in School. So these are topics that we didn't get educated on for whatever reason, and I thought I would share them on a weekly basis. So this is our second episode. If you happen to miss the first one, please do go over to our YouTube channels. I will bring up the graphic. We actually have two. We have USA Global TV and Radio and Dr. Jacalyn KERBECK. Our topic today is why being nice is often the reason people don't take you seriously. And when I say you, I mean the collective you, me as well. So we've always heard being nice, being kind, and that's something that I really believe is important, is what's most important. And there's also a saying that then when we are kind, nice guys finish last. So most of us were taught that being nice is a really good thing. Be polite, be agreeable, and don't make things uncomfortable for someone else. And for some period of time, that typically will work. So for people like you, people like me, being easy to deal with, not causing any problems, is what people come to expect. But then something starts to happen. One day, maybe you've had enough, or maybe you're tired of being silenced. And so you decide to speak up. You speak up, you say what's on your mind, and what happens? You get ignored. Even though you believe you're being very clear, people misunderstand you. You feel like you're being very helpful, but yet no one's taking you seriously. And you start to wonder to yourself, what is it that I'm doing wrong? So today, tonight, wherever it is that you're watching from around the world, I want to talk about why being nice, the way that many of us were taught to be, is often the very thing that works against us. And it's not because kindness is wrong, or because kindness often means avoiding clarity or avoiding conflict or avoiding saying something that we actually mean. It's basically about speaking our truth. It's about understanding the difference between being nice and being respected. And why is it that no one's ever explained this to us? That's why it's on this program today, what they don't teach us in school. So settle in. We've got another 30 minutes that we're going to be talking about this. If you do have any comments or feedback, please go ahead and put it in the chat. And please keep your comments focused on the show. I'm really not interested in hearing your political views. We will just delete your comments. Thank you very much. Okay, so what I want us to do is to acknowledge that while we're being nice, we're not trying to manipulate or please. It's just something that we typically learn. And when we have to explain ourselves, sometimes that can cause frustration and even resentment. Many of us were taught that being nice is something that we should do as a good person. And so we're praised for that when we're younger. But as we get older, we realize that we're not getting the respect, that people start to take advantage of our niceness. And so what worked for us in childhood or even early in our careers often stops working for us later in life. And this can cause a lot of confusion because you've been nice you've done what you think are all the appropriate and right things, and yet people don't take you seriously. And so by not being taken seriously, you're not getting the respect. So something to think about is that you didn't suddenly change, but the expectations around you and of other people did change. So what does this actually look like in real life when we're being nice? And I'm using air quotes. We're actually not saying exactly what we want to say because we don't want to make anyone feel uncomfortable. We say yes many times when we really mean maybe or no. We wait so long for our turn to say something or do something that the moment passes and it no longer seems important. Or we just let things slide instead of addressing them. So I want to give an example, as I always like to do. I remember when I was in corporate, and every Monday we would have these meetings, and we would go around the table, and each person would share what it was they were working on and what the account status was or what was going on with their clients. And even though each of us was given a turn, there would be some people who would always hog the floor, so to speak. They always had to speak and continue speaking. And when you shared something, they'd have to jump in. And so I felt this over and over again. And finally, what I decided was that no one really cared what I had to say. So guess what I did? I didn't really say anything. I would say whatever was asked of me, I would give the information, but I wouldn't really chime in. And I ended up feeling really insecure, almost inferior, and kind of really small. And I remember one day my vice president called me into the office and he said, "Jack, you don't say anything in the Monday meetings. What's going on with that?" And I said, "I just don't feel like anyone really cares what I have to say or that I have to say anything that's that important." And he said, "I'm so sorry you feel that way. Of course, what you have to say is important. Why are you feeling that way?" And I said, "Well, because whenever I go to speak up, somebody actually cuts in and steals my time. And so this happens on a regular basis. Now, if this were the situation today, no, that would not be the case. But that was the case back in 2018, 2019. And so what happens is it ends up impacting our self esteem, and it can ultimately impact our mental and physical health. So, how do we actually continue to be nice and at the same time command respect? And it goes back to what I'm always teaching. For those of you who are not aware, I founded a platform called Elevated Listening. It's trademarked, and basically there are 4 components, and I'll review them with you now in case this is your first time with us today. The first is listening without interruption. And without interruption means that even though you might not physically say something, your body language indicates that you have something to say and that you're just waiting for the right moment for the other person to stop speaking so you can jump in and interrupt them. The second is listening with problem solving. So you decide that you have the answer to the person's problem. But the truth is, how could you possibly know what someone else needs when you don't even know what you need most of the time? So we have to listen without problem solving. I've had people say to me, "You know what? I heard what you said and I know what you need." And I think, that's very interesting. How could you possibly know what I need? So we are very assumptive in assuming that we know what someone needs. And if someone doesn't ask for us to solve the problem, why do we feel like we need to do so? The third is listening without stage hogging. Stage hogging is what I just described to you, where you are sharing something and someone else has to top your story, or they have to say, "You know what? I had the same thing happen to me, and this is what happened." And you actually never get an opportunity to finish your story because someone stole your stage. And the last, and I've written a book about this, is judgment. Judgment is what corrodes and it interferes with having a healthy relationship. We're constantly judging other people. In fact, you may be judging me right now. You may be judging the way I look. You may be judging what I'm wearing, how I'm speaking. And that's your business. It's not my business. But when we make our judgments interfere with conversations or how we treat other people, this becomes an issue. So those are the 4 pillars of elevated listening. So when niceness gets misread, when we're not practicing elevated listening, sometimes if we have indirect communication with someone, then that can be mistaken for uncertainty. When we're flexible, agreeable, that can be mistaken for the fact that we have no boundaries or lack of boundaries. And when we're giving information in a very calm voice, this can be mistaken for the fact that we're not actually convicted to whatever it is that we say we are. And finally, being agreeable, saying yes, being a people pleaser, that can be mistaken for just being optional, meaning, you know what, it doesn't really matter what I think. So, what is the key idea here? People do not respond to intentions. What they do respond to are signals. And the signals are, I am here, I matter, I have something to share. And at the same time, I often have a boundary. So let's look at what is the cost for people not talking about these things. 1, as I just mentioned, being overlooked in meetings. It could be family meetings, could be business meetings. 2, in work capacity or even in home, being assigned more work or more duties because you just don't push back. Have you ever felt like everything is dependent upon you because you keep saying, yes, I'll do it, or you just don't complain? And so the people in our lives who we're closest to, they just figure, okay, he or she, they don't mind, just give them more work, because we don't push back, because we're nice, because we don't want confrontation. The next thing is feeling resentful, but not knowing who to blame. We're so angry, it's building up inside of us, yet we don't know who we're angry with or why. That anger is because we're not expressing ourselves, because of the fear of not being nice anymore. I've talked to you before about coming from a place of love or coming from a place of fear. And so all of these things are aligned with that mindset of fear. We start to lose confidence in our own voice. And ultimately, we can be so tired, we don't even feel like expressing ourselves. So this idea of being nice, it's great for the short term. But in the long term, it can cause frustration, resentment, and anger. Now, am I advocating that you should just decide now, you know what, that's it, I watched the show today and I'm not going to be nice? Absolutely not. Of course we want to be nice. Of course we want to lead with compassion and with empathy. We want to lead our lives with grace and dignity. And at the same time, we have to have boundaries. Just because we have a boundary and we push back, that doesn't mean that we're being rude. That doesn't mean we're being thoughtless, inconsiderate. The way we deliver the information could mean that, but how someone interprets the meaning is on them. If you're familiar with Mel Robbins, and I'm not a paid spokesperson, but she has the let them theory, let people do what they're going to do. Let them think what they're going to think. Let them say what they're going to say. And in the meantime, take care of yourself. You don't have to be aggressive. You don't have to be rude. You don't have to be backpedaling. You don't have to be over-explaining. What you need is clarity. The clarity is in who you are and what works for you, what you're willing to put up with, what you're willing to celebrate. So think about various times in your life, maybe even right now you're going through something, and you're just feeling like you're being taken advantage of. If your intuition is telling you that, it's probably correct. So my question to you is, what are you going to do about it? Now, I've shared this with people who have taken my courses. When you learn something, if you decide to go and take that information and go to the other person who is kind of triggering you in one way or another and say, you know what? I took a course today. I took a workshop. I read a book. I had a therapy session. I met with a coach. And what I found out is that you are this, that, and the other. How do you feel the other person is going to respond to that? Do you think it's going to be positive? I would say no. I would say most likely the other person is going to be resentful because now you're coming across in a judgmental way and you are potentially acting as though you are superior to the other person or persons. So that's never a great way or a healthy way to set a boundary. The best thing that I found in my experience is you always honor and acknowledge the other person. If they're sharing something, you let them know that you've heard them. You thank them potentially for sharing. Thank you, Susan, for sharing what you shared today. I really appreciate hearing your position on this. Now, in your typical way of being nice, you may say something like, I feel exactly the same way. Maybe you don't feel the same way. So what you could do is, as an option, you could say, you know what? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Now, how do you think that that's going to make an impact on the other person? It's not going to be positive. So now you're confrontational. So you went from being nice to being confrontational. You went from one extreme to the other. What could you do? What are some options? You could say this. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate hearing your opinion. That's it. Silence, nothing. Now, I know many people feel uncomfortable in the silence, but silence is also a message. And whatever the other person interprets from the silence, that's on them. We don't have to think about, I wonder what she thinks about the fact that I didn't say anything. It doesn't matter. You could spend all your time trying to figure out what someone else is thinking. And in the meantime, it's time that you're wasting on things that you could do to be productive. Now, if you don't feel comfortable in the silence, what you could do is you could say this. Thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate it. I wasn't aware that's how you felt, and it's good to know. Did I give any information about how I feel? No. This is where we get tripped up. We get tripped up because we really feel that it's vitally important that the other person knows that we don't agree with them. So my question to you is why? Why is that important? Is it about control? Is it about ego? What is it about? In my experience, it's on the coming from a place of fear side. Everyone has an opinion about a zillion things. So if we spend all of our time analyzing everyone's opinions, we're not going to have time to do anything else. So you can acknowledge what they said and you can move on. Now, if you want to share that you don't agree with them, ask yourself why. Why do you want them to know how you feel? So here's an example. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate your opinion. Actually, I don't agree with you at all. I have a completely different opinion. You could say that. Now, when you say that, what's going to happen? You're inviting judgment and or further conversation. Do you want to have dialogue about this particular thing? If you do, then that's great. Then you open the door. And so wherever that leads, that's where you're going to go. Now, what I'd like to caution you on is something that I call stepping into the fire. So I want you to think before you speak, before you write, before you text, before you phone someone. 3 questions. Number 1, is what you're about to say or write, is it kind? Number 2, is it necessary? And number 3, is it true? And if you say it is true, is it the actual truth that a third party could look at and say, okay, we've analyzed all the facts, this is true? Or are you manipulating the truth so it works for you? And we do this as humans, we do it all the time. So if it's not those 3 things, then think seriously before you say it, you post it, you text it, you email it, you phone it. Because now you're asking for someone to engage with you. You're putting something out there in the universe that could be considered to be controversial because you've given your opinion, and some group of people are going to agree with you and some are not. So you've actually just opened the door to invite controversy or invite people to chime in and say, you know what, I really think that you've got something there. You're really onto something. So think about it. I call that stepping into the fire. So you have the opportunity to close the door and say, without saying it, I'm not interested in having this conversation, in a polite way, in a respectful way. Or by saying how you feel about something, you're engaging and opening the door and saying, you know what, why don't you walk through this door with me? And why don't we feel like we can go back and forth between how you feel and I feel? We could debate it all day long. That's up to you. That's a choice. But regardless of which way that you go, you can set boundaries. The first boundary is I choose not to engage. The second boundary is I choose to engage, but I have a limit. And either way that you go, you're going from just being nice and being overlooked potentially to being respected. Because in the first example, you acknowledge that you heard the person. That's always important. Everyone wants to feel that they are acknowledged and heard. But you're setting a limit. You're basically saying, I heard you. I understand. Thank you for sharing. Not engaging. And the second case, you're basically saying the same thing, but I want to engage. I've given you my perspective, and now let's have a conversation or a debate, wherever it is that it goes. So it's your choice. Instead of deciding either I'm going to be one way or another way, you can actually look at the situation. And depending on what the situation that you're in, you may feel like, in a work example, that you feel the need to speak up because you've been overlooked, possibly for a promotion, or possibly you didn't get the accolades that you thought you deserved. And at the same time, maybe you don't say anything, but your behavior indicates how you feel. Now, again, we can come from a place of love or a place of fear. If you're coming from a place of fear, you might do things to bring attention to yourself in a negative way. I found that typically doesn't work out too well. Or you may take the higher road and be gracious and understanding. And even though you didn't get what you thought you were deserving, for example, as a promotion, you are still conducting yourself with grace. So you're being nice, but at the same time, you're not being what I call a doormat. Okay, we've got some comments. Let's see. Dakota writes, I subscribe to you and I hit the like button. Well, thank you very much. We've also got women typically overthink things. Life isn't that difficult. We're just trying to be helpful. Okay, so I didn't say anything about gender, right? I didn't bring up gender. So we're talking about individuals and how we show up. We don't have to trade respect for approval. Now think about that. If we are constantly looking for external validation and approval from other people, what are we giving up? Respect. When we respect ourselves, we don't need that external validation. Is it nice sometimes? Sure. Do we want people to go, hey, that's great, terrific. But if our whole focus and reason for being is to have somebody else tell us that we're worthy, that is a downward spiral. I've shared this before, and I just want to talk about it a little bit again today. People will come in and out of our lives for a reason or for a season, as the saying goes. And sometimes we have no idea. We don't know why the person's in our life. And then one day, they're gone. And we have no explanation. They didn't send a card. They didn't give a text. There was no message as to why they left. And we feel totally unsettled about it. But maybe they were only in our life for that specific time so that we could learn something or experience something. And if you think of a tree, if you look out your window right now, depending where you are in the world, if it's winter and you're looking out the window and you see trees and they have no leaves, or if it's summer and you see trees and have a lot of leaves, think about the leaves. The leaves come and they go. There could be a strong wind and it blows all the leaves away. And that's how relationships are, personal and professional. And so by being aligned with external validation, we're going to get hurt every single time someone comes out of our life. And we'll be very suspicious when someone comes into our life. Oh, how long is he or she going to be around? And so I'd like you to think about the fact that everything happens in its time and for a purpose. Tree branches are much sturdier, but sometimes they get cut down if they're interfering with an electrical wire, or if there's a storm, lightning, and then the branches will break off. So they could be relationships that have been even more significant, but yet they can still go. And then look at the tree itself with the roots. If you've ever seen a 100-year-old tree or even older, you might see sidewalks that haven't been maintained or cracking, or asphalt or concrete, whatever the case may be. But those roots are there for the test of time. And so your root is your self-esteem. It's your confidence. It's your internal validation that doesn't require people pleasing. So I want you to think, as we're coming to the end of this episode, are you being nice, or are you giving away your self-esteem? Now, I used the term doormat earlier. Doormat is actually a judgmental term, right? If we think about it, you being a doormat. But you can picture what a doormat's purpose is, right? We wipe our feet off before we can come into the house, or vice versa. So as humans, we want to set the example. We want to show people how to treat us. And we can do that by treating them with integrity, with grace, and with honor. And at the same time, we can say to ourselves, no, only 2 letters, is a complete sentence. No, thank you. Without an explanation. When we start over explaining ourselves, we lose all credibility, because now we're on the defensive. It's almost like we're being backed into a corner. So hold steady. Believe in yourself. You have everything you need right now, right in here. When you look in the mirror, you are looking at your best friend. Take care of that best friend. That best friend knows you better than anyone. I want to thank you for your time and your consideration. I appreciate the people who've left comments. That's really nice. Thank you. And if you would like to be a member of our community, you can go to either of our 2 YouTube channels, USA Global TV and Radio or Dr. Jacalyn KERBECK, and you can subscribe there. We will be back with another episode. I personally do this show. I do Talking Heads. I do Let's Finally Talk. And then in a couple of hours, I'll be back on A Woman's Prerogative with Reverend Lydia Fugires from Canada. I also do Iconic Women and Judgment, the Hidden Sin. So if you'd like to be a guest on any of my shows or any of my team shows, please go to our website, usaglobaltv.com. Thank you again for being here today. I really do appreciate it. Be good to yourself. Take care of yourself. Love yourself. Because if you don't love yourself, no one will love you. Take care. Bye for now.
In a noisy world, true connection begins with listening. Elevated listening transforms every conversation in just 5 simple steps. Pause and breathe. Set your intention. Listen with curiosity. Reflect back. Agree on one next step. Join the listening mentor on Let's Finally Talk with Dr. Jacalyn KERBECK, the listening mentor, where we help you find inner peace, one conversation at a time. Streaming every day. Let's Finally Talk TV show with Dr. Jacalyn KERBECK, only here on USA Global TV and Radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channels to watch and engage with all our content. Every woman carries a story of strength, of purpose, of light. Through her courage, the world is transformed. Through her grace, generations are inspired. This is Iconic Women. Within every woman lives a goddess, a celebration of brilliance, beauty, and empowerment. Join us every Wednesday at 11 a.m. New York, 4 p.m. London time, only here on USA, Global TVR, and radio. Featuring the iconic Dr. Jacalyn KERBECK, honoring voices that shine across the world. Subscribe to our YouTube channels, USA Global TV and Dr. Jacalyn KERBECK, to watch and engage with all our content. World-class education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honored to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA Global TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacalyn KERBECK. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.